Hey, test.
Your call cannot be completed as dialed. Please check the number and dial again.
No.
Or dial 61.
No, dude. Your
What?
dad didn't get new minutes.
No,
He didn't re-up his minutes on his phone.
Hold on, I think
On
missed
an
that.
old folks phone plan.
Hold on.
You dialed the wrong number.
No.
Hey, Dad.
What's up?
Not much. How are you?
How you working?
Why? What's wrong?
Fucking legs hurt. Walking. Getting old.
Oh, well, that's unfortunate.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you're going to get old too.
You know, hey, I forgot to tell you.
Don't even start with that fucking promotion shit.
I wasn't. Listen, I didn't tell you about my trip to New Jersey this weekend.
Well,
It was a great experience. You know, we had I was in the locker room at the wrestling show, and you know, I was changing my into my spandex tights, and with my dong hanging out, the boys in the back noticed, you know, hey, you look finely groomed there. What's the deal? And I said, well, hey, you know, I've been using I've been using these products from Manscaped. You know, and they said, "Can I take a closer look?" I said, "Absolutely." And they were trying to take a closer look, and they said, "What did you say? It's Manscaped?" I said, "Yeah, I've been using this thing called the Lawnmower 3.0. It's working wonders." And they're like, "Oh boy, that's quite interesting. How's the motor on that thing?" And I said, "Well, it's funny that you ask. It's got a 7,000 RPM motor on it." And then they said, "Well, geez, like, well, what if I don't have electricity currently? How am I going to see while I'm shaving down there?" And I said, "Well, it also comes with a light on it, which is quite nice, and it also comes with the ball deodorant and the ball toner, which I feel like will help you smell better down there." And they said, "Hey, can we take a whiff?" And I said, "Go for it." And they took a whiff of my balls, and
you're an asshole,
what? No, not my asshole, my balls.
No,
What?
you're an asshole.
Why?
Period.
Why?
I don't believe a fucking thing you're saying.
Why is this so unbelievable?
Because I am.
Because it's such a wonderful product.
It's a great product. Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, who the fuck's you recording, you asshole? I know you recording me.
I'm
I
not.
hear someone in the background.
What? No,
Hey,
I'm not
hold on,
recording
wait.
you. I'm not recording you. Oh my God,
Damn it.
Aaron, you ruined it.
Ah.
Jesus.
Your dad's name is Dewey, right?
Yes, not.
And
Rob.
I wanted to ask him. I wanted to say, Dewey, do we use Manscaped or not?
Okay, well, I see what you did there. Well, you know what? We do use the Manscaped, and we do enjoy it.
Yeah. Do we use the Manscaped? Yes.
Do we ever?
Yes, we use it. I've been trying to use it daily,
Yeah.
just because of how good it feels.
I was going to say, there's no point after you shave your balls to use it the next day. I mean, it just seems unnecessary.
Well, I don't know. You ever felt it?
I mean, it feels good.
Yeah, of course. Especially if you're a lonely, lonely man like I am.
Oh, boy, you're turning into a real sexual thing.
No, that's not what I mean. I'm just saying when you like something feels good, you just do it, whenever you can.
Though, to be fair, I mean, if you like having sex, it's a fact that over 80% of mates approve of a groomed ball sack.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I approve of one, too.
Yeah. So, also, I want to point out that I need to tell my dad I love him, which always makes me upset. But what doesn't make me upset is the Lawnmower 3.0, especially when I know that I can get it for 20% off and free shipping with promo code PARDON.
You know what else I like?
What?
I like that I know that I can get it wet.
Pardon?
You can get it wet. It's waterproof.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And that's the only thing I've been getting wet lately.
That sounds about right. So, yeah. So, manscaped.com. Go on over there. Use the promo code PARDON. That's PARDON. And you'll save 20% and get free shipping. And it's a great way to support the show. Eventually, my dad's going to jump on the bandwagon.
You know what? We should have requested that the promo code was Pardong.
Okay.
Pardong. But that's not it. But next time we say, we do one of these spots, we're going to say, the promo code is Pardong, but there's without the G.
If we get a renewal, I request that we get the promo code to be Dewey, just to anger my dad.
Yeah.
And with that, on to the show.
Initiating podcast download. Prepare yourself. Put on your spandex. Lace up your boots. Wrap your wrists. Hide your razor blade. Head to gorilla position. Grease up your hair. Apply baby oil. Okay, apply more baby oil. Get into gimmick. Keep your ears open and your mouth shut. Have fun and be safe out there, brother. Welcome to Iron on Wrestling. Now your host, Gregory Iron.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Iron on Wrestling with Gregory Iron. I'm your host, Gregory Iron, and this is episode 95, and we have a good episode for you today, following up on last week's episode. Okay. Well, apparently, he's at least doing things that aren't copyrighted anymore, so that's nice. Seems a little bit too dramatic.
Pardon the interruption.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
This is the illustrious illusionist Aaron Magic Boy Bauer.
What? Why are you the Magic Boy?
Because this is songs for magicians.
It does sound like it would be something on magicians.
Uncopyrighted songs for magicians.
Okay, yeah. It's like Magic Secrets Revealed or something right there.
Name of the song is called Smoke and Mirrors.
That's the name of the song that Cody Rhodes used in WWE when he was dashing. Oh, man. I love dashing Cody Rhodes.
So did I.
You know, Cody Rhodes, this is not on topic with anything we're doing today, but I really thought, and he still is in a lot of ways, anything the WWE gave him, he was able to roll with it and make it work.
I love Stardust.
I thought
I don't care
was
what
great.
anybody says.
He reminded me very much of Chris O'Donnell that played
Batboy or Robin. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. There was something cool about, but he did the mustache thing, got that over.
Mm-hmm.
He did the dashing thing, got that over.
Mm-hmm.
Then he was disfigured, and
I loved when he was disfigured
with the paper bags.
There was nothing wrong with him.
It was awesome.
It was actually Kane's storyline.
Yeah, but it was great. He made all that stuff work very well. So whatever. That's
what he's doing right now in AEW is probably the worst character of his entire professional wrestling run.
Why do you say that?
Well, it's just not as good. I liked Stardust. I was entertained by that. I was entertained by Dashing Cody Rhodes, the mask gimmick.
I think Dashing
mustache.
might have been my favorite. Dashing / the mask gimmick. I think they were like one and the same.
Yep. Maybe I didn't like as much when he teamed with Bob Holly.
Well, yeah. I mean, he was just starting.
But I kind of liked when him and Dusty and Dusted got back together for a little bit.
Yeah,
remember, I think the Rhodes brothers won the tag belts, didn't they?
Dude, they had one of the best matches on pay-per-view. It was Battleground 2013, and it was the Shield versus Cody, Goldust, and wasn't it a six-man, or was it just a tag match?
I don't remember. Maybe.
Whatever the case was, it was at Battleground, and I remember it was just a big deal and really awesome. And I don't know, it was nice to see Dusty get that last run on TV before he
Is your
passed
mic
away.
on?
Yeah. My mic's on.
I just don't see the red light fluttering like sometimes it does.
It definitely is.
Okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like it to me.
It is.
Okay.
La 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 la. See, it's moving.
Oh.
Yeah, now I'm really loud. Anyways, that was very much off topic. Today, we have a great show. Last week, we talked to a man who was missing for nearly 30 years, closer to 20-ish if you were actually in the areas in which he was wrestling, but from the general wrestling community, 30 years. Richie Rouge, IPW professional wrestler and sort of an urban legend of sorts. Mm-hmm. We found him, we had him on the show, and he sort of gave us another perspective on what we've seen from the promotion that gave us Jumpin' Jeff Farmer. Now, we're going to talk about some production aspects that we've been involved with in wrestling television over the years, because today, following up on last week's episode about IPW and Richie Rouge, we are talking to the men behind the production of IPW. That's right. In doing my research and my digging and deep diving, the production company, Ozark Video, that produced international pro wrestling in Arkansas back in the late 80s, early 90s, they still exist. I found them, and I talked with Tom McFetridge and his dad, Bill McFetridge, who actually originally ran Ozark Video, and we had a great conversation about not only the production aspects of IPW, but some of the memories of some of the guys, and of course promoter Bill Ash. And I didn't think we were going to talk for that long.
Yeah.
I thought it was just going to be maybe a bonus episode I was going to drop, but it was a great conversation. So I was like, you know what? Let's make it a regular episode. So we're dropping that for you later today, and you're going to enjoy that one. So I figured we should talk about some production aspects within television pro wrestling that we've been involved with. But first, I want to sidebar, if you're okay talking with it, because I was very worried about you this past week / weekend. I tried to come over and hang out with you. You had quite the surreal situation go down where we used to work together, Murray Ridge, working with adults with developmental disabilities. So talk to me about that.
Yeah, so I was working in my bubble area. You know, we kind of all have little bubbles that we stay in at the workshop. And I heard what I described as like a blood-curdling scream from an area over from me. And I ran over to see what was going on, if I could help, if something was really wrong. And there was one of my coworkers was screaming as she said that the guy she was working with was having a seizure. And she was trying to hold him up. He was in a chair shaking. And I ran over into the nurse's station and called 911 and went through the whole deal. And then we had two nurses, two off-duty paramedics that work there in production roles, and a bunch of other workers came out, and supervisors and that, and we performed CPR, first aid, and Jennifer and I ran and got the AED machine. You know what that is?
Yeah.
Remember? So for those that don't know, it's the paddles that like you see on TV, where they put the paddles on someone's chest and they shock them and try to bring them back to life and put electricity in them. Nothing worked, and it seemed like we were working forever. And I was moving a table out of the way. We have the long production tables that are kind of like the WWE old tables or the ECW old tables, you know, the folding tables.
Yeah.
With the wooden ones. And as I was moving the table, the nurse, one of the nurses said, "Hey, keep moving the table." His body started moving because of the noise of the table moving on the floor, and it's loud. So I started moving all these tables and chairs around, and then 911 was on their way. I ran and grabbed a key and unlocked a door to make sure that they were able to get in without any problems. Again, I don't know how. Everybody was switching to doing chest compressions on this man. He foamed at the mouth, and I kind of thought it was over. paramedics came in. They arrived. Shocked them a few more times. They had something that they did. I tried to get everybody out of the way then as much as possible. And you wanted people to, when this electricity happens, you want everybody to kind of stay back with these paddles. And we lost them. We weren't able to save them. Everybody did everything that they were supposed to do exactly right. He was in an exact right place he could have been in for the best chance of survival. But I guess at the hospital they said he was blocked. The artery or whatever was blocked going to his heart so badly that they couldn't even get like a catheter in there to try to clean out stuff. And he was pronounced dead at the hospital. 39-year-old man.
That's awful.
Yep.
You were telling me that, like, at one point you were like really screaming at him to try to get him to come back.
That's right. Because you want to talk to people when they're kind of unconscious, and you're trying to get them to come back to life, or to kind of come out of it, whatever is going on with them. Yeah, I was screaming at him, screaming his name, and I don't know. Nothing was going to work. So I guess when it's your time, it's your time. But I really respect the people that I work with, and everybody came together. It was such a unified team, and we're all trained for this.
Yeah.
And we go through extensive training. And I was just in CPR class, recertification class with this guy 2 weeks ago.
Right.
And but again, I haven't had to try to save somebody's life in a long time because COVID hit, and I worked from home or at home for 8 months? It was ridiculous. So I'm kind of rusty at this, and I thought that I wasn't gonna be able to get my shit together, and so everybody was a little rusty, but it didn't show at all. And one person doing chest compressions and then basically tagging out and letting somebody else come in and do chest compressions because you're giving everything you have.
Sure.
So, but shit didn't work out, man. Proud of everybody that put in the effort. Even the people even a woman that initially screamed, if she hadn't screamed that loud, then I wouldn't have ran to her to see what was wrong.
Right.
So that was bang, bang right there. And then from there, I crossed paths with the nurses as they were leaving their station, and I went in and called 911. So there was no possible way 911 could have been called any faster than what it was.
Yeah.
We had one girl there who was, she just kept praying. And I told her, she was like, all I did was pray. And I said, well, that's all anybody needed you to do at that point. That was fine. And that's what kept her head on her shoulders, I think.
Yeah.
When we ran to get the AED device, I think I opened the door to it, and she grabbed it, and then she looked and she saw her supervisor who does a lot of fitness stuff. What is a fitness program that's real hot right now? Where CrossFit, CrossFit, yeah. So she's real into that. So my coworker turns, and she's handing off a football or pitching a football to a running back. She throws it to this woman, and yells, "Go, go, go!" And this woman, who's probably the fastest person, actually runs as a hobby in her spare time. Mm-hmm. That was the perfect move. Give it to her because she's going to get there quicker than anybody.
Yeah. Have you ever actually used one of those until that moment?
No. I don't believe so.
It's wild.
Yeah. Yep. And it was, like I said, it might have just been the week before. we were getting recertified in CPR, and we had to use it on a mannequin.
Right. Well, considering that everyone came together, I feel like, initially I was very worried, like about how you were feeling, just because, you watched a dude die in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say that I've ever experienced that.
Yeah.
But you're doing okay.
Yeah. 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 Doing all right.
Good. Well, let's try to have some fun today. Let's talk about production in pro wrestling. Now, IPW, of course, ran on television for roughly a year. We don't know for sure, but hopefully we get the exact specifics somewhere down the line. You'll hear more about that as the interview progresses. But when we talk about production pro wrestling, the most notable promotions that we worked for that had television production would be Cleveland All Pro Wrestling on Sports Time Ohio, which then led to Pro Wrestling Ohio / Prime Wrestling on Sports Time Ohio. Now, you weren't around much for Cleveland All Pro, right?
I wasn't around much for it?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
For Cleveland All Pro on TV.
Oh, on TV? No, I don't think I ever went to one event.
Okay, so the production for that show was done by Mike Moran, which you'll know from the end of PWO when it was Prime Wrestling. You remember Mike, right?
Yep.
Okay, so he got his foot in the door doing the production for Cleveland All Pro while being a trainee. I don't know if I ever told you this, but so he was training, and he wanted his wrestling name to be The Mind Maze, okay? And I don't know if he was picking up on the wrestling stuff as well as most guys, but one day JT's talking about how he's going to get this TV show on Sports Time Ohio, and Mike, maybe for a little bit, seemed like a mistake, but I think it's worked out for Mike in the long run because he's produced a lot of stuff for wrestling and MMA and has made a good living. But so he ends up speaking up and goes, I think I could produce a show for you. I've got all the editing equipment and all this stuff. And so JT pulled him aside, and they ended up doing a pilot, which is available over on our Patreon, patreon.com/IronWrestling, where they brought in Jamie Scott, a gentleman from Erie, Pennsylvania, to do commentary. He would end up being the commentator for Cleveland All Pro as well as Pro Wrestling Ohio for, I believe, just the first season, and I think he made a couple appearances after that. He commentated for a match between a piece of shit that owes me money named David Tower, when he was just a child, versus an 18-year-old Johnny Gargano. And so, again, you can see this rare match while he's wearing a Kurt Angle shirt. Johnny is on patreon.com/IronWrestling at the $3 level. It's very entertaining. Cleveland All Pro was definitely a work in progress when it came to the start of working in produced TV. I felt like I was very fortunate to be a part of that. But I think it was a growing process for JT and Wally, the promoter, who was involved, who would be the figurehead of Pro Wrestling Ohio and Prime Wrestling later. If you go back and look at those early Cleveland All Pro shows, which also are over on our Patreon, patreon.com/IronWrestling, we're uploading all of those episodes eventually, but I think we got up to 12 episodes right now where you can see the likes of Daniel Bryan and Cesaro and Chris Daniels and Johnny Gargano and Alex Shelley and just so many guys that would go on to be stars in these CAPW TV shows. It was very dimly lit, not the best quality, but Mike was doing his best with what he had. There was only I think 2 or 3 cameras at the time. There's a lot of those episodes that look a lot like IPW. They're just not as popular because we didn't have a Jumpin' Jeff Farmer. Both the best and the worst of pro wrestling. But the most notable thing that I remember about the production during that time period was, much like you'll find out later from Tom and Bill about IPW, the money wasn't always the best. And Mike Moran was getting very frustrated about not being paid for his services. Well, he made the mistake one day of approaching JT about getting paid. I know, God forbid, right? What, you want to get paid? And I think it was during a training session at Turner's. Or it might have been after a show. I can't remember exactly. I just know it was over on that stage in Turner's Hall, famed building in Cleveland, Ohio, that's hosted many wrestling shows.
Famed piece of shit building.
It is a famed piece of shit, for
right?
sure.
I mean, we used to always for AIW just hyped the hell out of it. This building has so much wrestling history in it, and now we have it. But guess what? It doesn't have running water.
Right. Well, I mean, look.
But you know what else it has? Some weird janitor guy that lives in the rooftop.
Yeah, what was
the
the
building
name?
and a tent on the roof.
Igor.
Igor.
Igor. Yeah, Igor. Not from Winnie the Pooh. Yeah.
Oh, Greg.
Yeah, he looked like the guy from The Hunchback of Notre Dame. It was not
Notre what?
Notre Dame.
Okay.
Whatever. He did not. He was not a pleasant looking fellow. I'll tell you that. But ECW Arena was not a nice building in its time.
Yeah.
To be fair, and
I know.
what is that famous for? A bunch of shit, right?
You're right.
So that building,
But I'm just
fucking
saying
sucked.
that Turner's Hall wasn't like a famous building.
Yeah, no. So it's not a good.
But
building.
we always said it was.
Yeah, but anyway, so one day Mike Moran tried to get paid from JT for producing the show, and I'll never forget looking over, and JT not only had Mike Moran pinned up against the wall choking him, but he had picked him up. He must have been on a huge cycle of roids at the time, JT, and he fucking picked him up against the wall and was like choking him out. And I remember Wally, the promoter, had to pull JT off of Mike Moran because he was going through some sort of bipolar rage that he was having, and Wally had to try to tell him, it's not, he's not really out of line by asking you to be paid for producing the show that he's been doing for months and months for television. I don't remember if Mike ended up getting paid then and there, but I think he ended up getting something, but eventually...
Oh, he got something?
For Emily. And, that was... it was an interesting time period, but then Mike would end up starting to produce the show on for PWO, Pro Wrestling Ohio, but then that ended up going to a guy by the name of John Cronica. What do you know about John Cronica in PWO?
I remember he was the tag team partner of Bobby Beverly in AIW, right?
Bev, yes.
Yeah, they were the Beverly Brothers.
They were the Beverly Brothers. Yes, they were. They started as the Franchise Players, which was a takeoff of another group that Cronica was in. So John Cronica.
Whoa! Wait, what?
You didn't remember that?
The Franchise Players?
Yes, that was.
Yeah, they were the Burning River 216 champions. Which, by the way,
okay.
I have a huge announcement to make.
All right.
Later in the evening.
Oh, okay. Later.
Yeah. I got to check with my attorney first.
Okay.
But I signed a contract.
Oh. Okay. Well, we'll talk about that later then.
Okay.
So, Cronica was from Youngstown, Ohio, and he had worked for a backyard promotion that I can't remember the name of. And he had a tag team partner by the name of Max Alexander.
Oh, that was his partner.
Yeah, and they were called the Franchise Players.
Yeah.
So they'd start doing pro shows. Probably the most notable thing I can remember them for was
Burning River, yeah.
No, not Burning River. They used to wrestle at PWX in Pittsburgh. And they were the team of Iron Justice, Gregory Iron and Matt Justice, beat for the NWA PWX Tag Team Championships, which I should find that match and I should put it over on Patreon, patreon.com/IronandWrestling. And I don't know, Cronica was a nice enough kid, I thought, though I do remember after my concussion with brain bleed, which I got at the hands of Michael Tarver and Ray Rowe, my first match back, it was against Cronica and Max Alexander, and Cronica said, can I give you a Canadian Destroyer off the top rope tonight? And I said, no, you can't.
That was probably a wise decision.
I just came back from a concussion. Also, I don't know if I can even post for a regular Canadian Destroyer, let alone one off the top rope in my first match back. So, not the brightest in the world sometimes. However, he did have production skills, and so he ended up taking the reins of the Pro Wrestling Ohio television show. And he actually, for a little bit, had an internship in Sports Time Ohio. Mm-hmm. And so, even though I didn't want to do it, it was what was best for the TV show. Mm-hmm. When I lived upstairs from Gargano, I had an extra room. And so Wally, the promoter, told me that he wanted to rent out this room to John Cronica so he can easily travel to downtown Cleveland instead of from Youngstown for this internship.
Yeah.
So I did it, and
So you and Chronica were roommates?
I hate it being worded like that.
Okay, so
I
you and
guess-
Chronica were boyfriends?
We weren't. No, we weren't boyfriends.
Oh, just partners.
He was like never there.
Okay.
But he did live in the same vicinity as me. Yes,
Okay. Sounds hot.
it's not, but it was best for production though, because sometimes he would just kind of go rogue and do shit that he wasn't supposed to for the show.
Yeah.
And it would like annoy us. Like I remember going into Resolution 2, which was like our WrestleMania type event that we did downtown. It was Josh Prohibition and Johnny Gargano, and I ended up, because I was the music guy, I would get all this uncopyrighted music. I ended up getting a song by a band that I used to like, a new metal band, which I still get made fun of because I saw them in concert twice, I think in the last 3 years. Wasn't my decision. My old buddy Ron said he was going to buy tickets for Flaw, okay, the name of this band, and if I wanted to go, and I said, no, absolutely not. It's 2018. I don't want to go see Flaw. I can't believe they're
2018?
Yeah.
You went in 2018 to see this band?
Yeah.
When did you live with Chronica?
This was like 2008.
And when did you
9?
present this song that you're talking about by this band?
2008 or 9. 2009.
And then, so 10 years later, you went to see them in concert?
Again, my buddy Ron offered to buy
Yeah,
the
no,
tickets.
I don't have a problem with that. It's just you're reliving.
I
I'm
don't,
okay with
I
it.
don't know if I wanted to relive it because when I went and seen them as a youth. In my
A ute? What's a ute?
A youth.
Okay.
In my teenage years, the crowds were bigger for new metal. And I went and saw them at the Odeon, and that place was packed back in the day. And going to see them at the Odeon in 2018, there was like 40 people, and it was very, very depressing and made me embarrassed to be there, especially to go there for a second time after the fact. But regardless,
So it's like the NWA. Not the group, but the wrestling federation.
yeah,
Yeah.
in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So Flaw had a side project called 5 Bolt Main, and I had got this theme song called The Gift, and that was going to be the official theme song of not only the show, but for the main event match between Josh Prohibition and Johnny Gargano. So before Chronica moved in, he made this video package, and he used the song, I don't know, some song by Crossfade. I don't know if you remember that band at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so he shows us this video package, and I was like, why are you using a Crossfade song? He goes, oh, I thought it worked. I'm like, okay, that's cool, but like, A, they work for a major record label, and B, I gave you the song for the show. You're supposed to incorporate that. So it became like a whole pissing thing, and he was being a dick about it. And I remember, Walt, the promoter, had the final say, and he ended up making him use this song. But we had to like look over his shoulder, me and Gargano, while he edited this video.
Yeah.
And it's an okay video. But going forward, after Chronica left, inevitably, I figured out how to make music videos, and Mike Moran came back around. But Chronica, man, I don't know, like, his downfall was, it turned out, he was stealing from the PayPal when the money was coming in for the DVD sales and the Blu-rays that he was producing. He would just...
Allegedly, or?
It was, it started out as an alleged situation that he denied, but, we ended up finding out the deal. He took this money, and so in the end, we decided to part ways with him, and that was that for John Chronica. What do you remember about John Chronica? Anything?
I liked a lot of the work that he did, and then we recorded a whole 4 weeks of shows in one taping, and none of the audio came out because this guy didn't press record.
Yeah, I remember that.
So then Wally, the promoter, had to pick me up from my home and drive me out to Youngstown so that I could re-record several weeks of PWO tapings.
I didn't know Wally was your chauffeur at the time.
What, was it you?
No.
Might have been.
Why weren't you driving?
Oh, I had my license suspended
Okay. Sounds
for
about
10
right.
years.
Wait, what?
My license was suspended for 10 years. I think it got suspended in 2002, and then I got it back in 2012 or 13.
Mathematically, that would make sense, yeah.
Or 13, maybe longer. Right? Yeah, somewhere around there.
For what now?
A crime that I didn't commit.
Oh, that's what everyone says.
I was framed.
Were you?
Yeah. So, anyway, I did some time, some hard time,
Okay.
prison, and now I'm rehabilitated.
You were in prison, but
I was in jail, and I wasn't. That was the time I wasn't wrestling in jail, and it wasn't the time that I was a guard in jail.
oh boy,
I've spent a lot of time in jail.
I believe you. But yeah, so you had to record those 4 weeks of TV. That was a real inconvenience. Well, do you remember?
Yeah, I think Joe Dombrowski had to come in from Pittsburgh.
He did, yeah.
Yeah,
That
and
was
then
the only way to salvage the TV.
well, he paid us too. That was the second time we got paid. We got paid the first time for working the show,
Yeah.
and never heard any of the commentary for it. It never saw the light of day. And I kept trying to come up with jokes that I had used in the commentary in the original one
No,
that I remembered.
it's very forced.
No, it came out all right because
so?
Joe Dombrowski's such a good partner that I still felt I liked it. I liked the commentary the second time, and I was pissed initially because I thought we did great on the first set of tapings.
Right.
And then the second set of tapings came along, and it felt like the first set may have just been a dress rehearsal.
Yeah.
And then, like, if you could see us in the background sometimes, we're trying to say things, and they're not syncing up with our lips.
Well, let's talk about being a part of that production on commentary. Now, usually those TV days, they were longer days.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they were much longer, though. I mean, for me and Gargano, they were longer because we were so close to the situation. We'd have to get up there and help set up the ring, and at the end of the night, we're taking the ring apart when most guys are leaving, and we're loading it back in the U-Haul and then storing it back in the garage. But for the commentators, for you and Joe, what did preparing look like for you guys for TV? Like, did you have specific notes, or did you just kind of fly by the seat of your pants? Or
Well, Joe and I would have a pre-production meeting 1 or 2 days before the show where Joe would call me somewhere around midnight and talk to me until somewhere around 3:30 in the morning.
Okay,
Why are you laughing?
that's a typical Joe Dombrowski
Okay,
call.
yes, it is.
Yep.
So,
Can't just take a couple minutes.
nope.
Joe is still one of those guys to this day where something that he could easily text to you, he's a call me on the phone guy,
Yeah.
and then he'll talk to you about everything else but what do you want to talk to you about. And the thing that he wants to talk to you about takes 5 seconds at the end of the conversation.
Yes.
So,
But I never minded it. I mean, look, I was working for PWO. PWO was paying me way more than anybody else was.
yeah,
I told you, sometimes Wally paid me $100 a show.
that's crazy.
It's absurd. I don't know what he told you guys that were in on like the whole money situation.
No, I think, I mean, he would tell me that he would occasionally give you like a big payday and stuff, and I was like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I just remember that time I took the pile driver on the chair from Bain
Yeah.
in Fostoria. He's like, never thought I would ever see you do that. Your history with your neck and your back, and you did that for us to put our promotion on the map.
Yep. We really went places after that show.
Then he went to prison, and
Well,
so anyway.
definitely could edit that part out.
Oh yeah, people don't fucking know.
Nope.
Okay, so where were we then?
You were talking about the amount of money Wally would pay you the preparation for
Oh yeah, so that's
TV.
I never minded preparing. Plus, I didn't have like a real full-time job at the time because I had talked with my wife at the time, and she really wanted to go back to work and found a job that she really liked. So she had asked me, would you mind staying home for a while I worked? Because we had 3 young kids.
Yeah.
And it's a fortune to put your kids in daycare.
Sure.
So I thought, okay, well, if I stay home for 2-3 years, I can really work on this professional wrestling thing and see if, this is really going to be what I want to do.
Right.
And if it's not pro wrestling, again, I applied for the Lingerie Football League and got a call back on that and worked for them for a little bit. And, there were other places. I got my WWE resume together. I went and took resume classes for like a month, and I got all my shit together for that. And anyway, this ain't an interview about me, but I was off for 3 years, off of a full-time job, and just doing PWO shots and other indie wrestling. But yeah, I didn't care that Joe would call me at 3:30 or at midnight and talk to me till 3:30 in the morning. Then we'd come in and we'd do like a regular production meeting. A lot of times, you would be there, me, Joe, Chronica, and then Chronica was always in the ear. If we were talking, he'd count us down. He'd say, "Okay, well, this is where I'm going to insert the Brody Lee package."
Yeah. Well, I'd like to
So
point
they'd
out
come
that
back.
one of the things that Chronica helped us get, at the time, it wasn't something that everybody had, was this little piece of machinery called a TriCaster, which basically was allowing us to do live editing. So that way, once the show was in the can, it was basically in the can. You didn't have to do anything afterwards, and that was saving us a lot of time, because in the early days of PWO, when originally, once Mike Moran left after episode 1, Josh Prohibition, while going through college, was also editing the show and working a job and pro wrestling. So sometimes getting those new episodes in the can in those early days was rough. So the TriCaster was a real blessing in disguise, and that thing was expensive as fuck.
What happened to first episodes where there was no commentary, and then you guys had to come up with an excuse that said like John McChesney crashed through the table and saw the audio? Actually, no. Somebody had requested that we do the rise and fall of PWO. Can we just save that for that episode?
Sure.
Okay.
We can.
Sorry, but production-wise, we had some, what do they call it, snafus? Yeah, we had a couple blunders and that, but
Well, do you remember the one episode where supposedly we got a lot of complaints because, I say supposedly, but I think we did, because for some reason, over commentary, and I don't know if Wally accused you or Joe Dombrowski at the time of doing it.
he accused me of it.
There was something went over commentary on Sports Time Ohio that sounded like someone saying "motherfucking cashier."
Yeah, but it was.
What was it?
It was Chronica did not edit out or bleep Aeroform's music.
Okay.
And there was a part where...
But no, because I remember that part of the controversy, because someone had said that. But I remember when Wally said it was Aeroform's music, but at the time they were Ninja Elite Squad.
Or whatever.
But they were the only group that had a custom theme, and there was no way that was in the song. So
I thought I heard it too. So
I said to Wally, I'm like, there's no way, because the Ninja Elite Squad was Louis Linden, Flip Kendrick, and Michael Facade.
You know what? No. It was a fan in the background saying, "Motherfucking Ninja Elite Squad, baby," or something like that. So
that's what it ended up being.
And he never bleeped that out.
Right.
But it was very audible, and as soon as I heard it, because I heard it at, for some reason I want to say we were preempted at 10, but there was always a replay at 2. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the 2 o'clock, I was awake, and I heard it, and immediately text Joe and Wally and said, "Hey man, somebody's got to go edit this because I heard motherfucking Ninja Elite Squad."
Yeah.
They didn't edit it, and the next week when it ran, because I think we ran 2 weeks consecutively.
Yeah, that's probably happened.
So then in the 10 o'clock slot, that's when people heard it, because nobody bothered to change it.
Yeah.
And but everybody was alert of it, because I was the first one to text about it. I know exactly what that was.
Yeah. So that was a big controversy. There was a lot of moments that probably could have definitely got us kicked off air, and because the production was so slow, sometimes the show would air for multiple weeks, and it was very frustrating to not have a new product out there.
Did you ever find a ride?
What?
Did you ever find a ride?
What are you talking about?
When I suggested you stand in the road, as you talked about being on the road to a career in professional wrestling, and that episode aired 9 weeks in a row.
I was having a match with Matt Justice. I remember that promo, and I had to walk down the street in, I forget what town in Ohio that was, but because me and Matt used to be a tag team, and now he was a part of the Megalomaniacs with Marion Fontaine, I cut some promo about traveling the roads with him.
Yeah.
And yeah, that
My whole idea was, let's get you on the road, which I thought was a brilliant idea in theory.
Yeah.
If we could have blocked off the road.
Yeah.
Remember,
and then-
it took 27 takes, and you're usually a one-take guy.
Yeah.
But just cars, and of course they're cars. They're allowed to be on the road. We don't have a filming permit.
Nope.
So we're just trying to get this promo in, and Greg's doing his damnedest to kill it every time. And he, every time it'd be like he'd get 90% of the promo done, and all of a sudden you'd hear some car would come down. Merp, merp. Hey, wrestler!
When we talk about promos, you produced a lot of those promos for
Yeah.
Pro Wrestling Ohio and Prime Wrestling. I think it could be easy to talk about the best promos and the worst promos. So I didn't want to hear about the worst promo or the best promo.
Oh, okay.
A little bit of positivity here. Who do you think in your time producing promos?
My go-to guys?
Well, no. Like
Okay.
during your time of producing in PWO/Prime, who do you think was the guy that came the longest as far as, boy, that did not sound right. Who came the farthest? That still sounds horrible. Listen, who made the most
progressed
progression
the most?
from your start to the end of Prime as far as promos go?
Yeah, Bobby Beverly sticks out.
Bobby's great.
Once he went from white babyface to leader of Sex Appeal, or co-leader of Sex Appeal, or however that was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Bobby, man. I really liked his stuff. Louis Linden.
Yeah, I could see that.
And I'll tell you why. Because when we started, Flip was the one in arrow form who did the majority of the talking.
Wait, what?
Do you remember that?
I don't remember that. I just remember him being the one that says
And then-
something, son.
Yeah, and
was
then we
great.
flipped the script, son.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Lewis was talking a little more. Or maybe it was vice versa. But yeah. So Lyndon, Kendrick, they changed a lot. They started finding their groove and hitting their stride, and it worked.
What about M-Dog?
Yeah, M-Dog, but here was the problem. It was like, M-Dog, you ready? You got to give me a little bit here. You got to give me a little bit here. And he fucking hide. He's always one of those guys. He was ducking and dodging.
Yeah.
I would always say that. I said, here's the guys that duck and dodge. Because after a while, Vic was brought in, Vic Joseph, and he was brought in to be my right-hand man in the production. And so after I got confident with Vic, I would have him just take his own, here, you take these three guys and get something out of them.
Right.
So,
Well, I mean, I always thought Matt really came a long way from my perspective just because, I don't know, like, his promos were always something that needed a little bit of improvement. I mean, I always loved him as M-Dog 20, the performer, but there was something missing as a character. And I remember when we were talking about turning him heel to feud with Johnny, I remember there was a little hesitation because we didn't know if he'd be able to do it with the promos. But I think, I don't know, maybe he needed a heel run on TV to bring something out of him, because I remember at that time period, whatever we gave him, and there was a progression leading up to that as far as his promos went. But I remember leading up to that, just when it came time to do the heel promos, he killed it. And it was almost like M-Dog had something to prove in the things that he was saying, and he believed in what he was saying, and I think that's key when it comes to promos. So I don't know. I think that was very important in his career, and then of course he went on to do the Tough Enough stuff for a second, and Stone Cold kicked him off of Tough Enough, and when he came back, I felt his promos were even better because he had that chip to drive him, and like sometimes the chip can be a burden. I know that at the start of my career, but sometimes those bad things, those things that piss you off, they can drive you to be something more and something better, and I think that's what M-Dog had on his shoulder at that time.
Yeah, I'll go with M-Dog in that sense, but just as a producer, it was annoying to try to find somebody.
I know how that
it's
goes.
like, hey, man, we're all in this area. This is where you need to be.
Yeah.
So, yeah. What else? I'm trying to think of somebody else that stood out. Your promos got better because you got more confident. That was. It's very easy to see that.
Yeah.
I thought.
Well, I always go back to that Al Snow thing, which I put up that promo up on Patreon because someone discovered it and sent it to me. Patreon.com/IronOnWrestling. It's a promo that I cut at OVW, and Al Snow was behind the camera, and it was this promo that I memorized every word I was going to say. I had 1 minute to cut this promo, and Al was behind the camera, and he said, "Hey, I guess that promo was okay, but next time, cut something from my heart instead of that memorized bullshit you just said." And he said, "Get out of here." And then I just left, and I remember being like, oh, God, maybe I should change the way I do promos. And I started bullet pointing things in my head and just kind of talking from the heart instead of just memorizing everything in my brain, and I think that really made the change for me.
Promos for me were like that.
Yeah.
There'd be times where I'd have some shit that I thought was going to be gold, and I'd practice it all week.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd say it in front of a mirror or just in a room by myself, and I had it all written down and go over it and over and over. Here's what you can't count on is the crowd. If they're not feeling it, you got to pivot.
Right.
Because there's been times where I didn't pivot, and then I paid for it. Like, oh, I lost these people. Okay, let me keep saying what I'm saying. They'll come back to me.
Right.
Nope.
Gotta listen.
Yeah. I really screwed the pooch in the promo where I took over PWO and changed the name to Prime Wrestling.
Okay.
Do you remember that?
I don't remember this promo.
Okay. Well, good. It was pretty forgettable.
No.
But it was supposed to be like the home run, really going to force the fact that we were switching over to Prime Wrestling. And I was the new owner, or what was I? Oh, the Prime Minister of Prime Wrestling. I was put in charge by maybe the network or some shit. Anyway, Joe Dombrowski had this thing written for me that I just couldn't get behind, and I wasn't feeling it.
Right.
And he wanted it word for word because it was so important to him that everything came out that he wanted.
Yeah.
I remember I was standing there, and I was just trying to leave the building that night, and we did these promos for some reason after the show.
Yeah.
And I was with Hannah Lightning that night, and she was standing there, and I was kind of excited. I wanted to show off my promo skills to somebody, and she was waiting for me to we were leaving together. And let me rip this one off real quick. They don't call me One Take Aaron for nothing or some bullshit.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah. But I was nervous because, fuck, man, it was all Joe's words, and he didn't want me to deviate from it. I must have been 21 Take Aaron. I could not get the shit that Joe wanted me to say, and I wasn't feeling it, and it was terrible. And finally, eventually, I got it right enough to where that's the cut that we used. But I was so fucking angry. I remember, I was fucking throwing shit outside. I was fucking pissed.
Yeah.
I'm getting mad now thinking about
Well,
it.
I think that's something that frustrated a lot of people, especially towards the end. I love Joe, and I think he did a lot of good for PWO and Prime Wrestling, but I think the heavily scripted promos that Joe would write. Like, he would write these monologues.
Mm-hmm.
And we know it's the case in WWE sometimes. These scripted promos just don't cut it. And these guys would have to say it word for word instead of Joe just bullet pointing something and saying, hey, just say it like this. Like, I remember, and Johnny, on the flip side, he had this monologue one time going into, I think, Resolution 3 against M-Dog. I don't know if you remember this. He did like a 10 or 12-minute promo backstage because he memorized a whole promo that Joe Dombrowski wrote. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty positive he did in one take.
Uh-huh.
Because he was like bragging about how he's just going to knock this promo out of the park. I can't imagine someone handing me a scripted promo and me just being like, well, here we go. Like, my brain doesn't work that way. Because I've done movies, and like the couple movies I've done when I've been handed a script, I've had to tell the directors, like, hey, I sort of know what I'm saying here. Can I just sort of ad lib? Is that cool? And they've thankfully allowed me to do that because, I don't know, when I was a kid and I did stuff in drama, of course I could do it. But my brain is not what it used to be when I was a teenager. I can't do that stuff anymore. I can't memorize that stuff. I got to feel it.
Yeah, I'm not memorizing anything anymore. And, if somebody wants to hire me for something and they think that I'm going to memorize their bullshit script, it's not happening. No. So just don't even bother with me. Yeah.
There's a lot of other production stuff I'm sure we can talk about, and I'm positive we'll talk about it at some point when we finally do this Rise and Fall of PWO. I want to give the right pieces to the puzzle, and I want to get the right people involved, and that's something I definitely want to do long form at some point. A lot of people have been requesting it, so we're definitely going to want to make that happen. But until then, right now, we're going to go to some words from our sponsors, and when we come back, we're going to hear some of the production aspects from international pro wrestling producers over at Ozark Video. We're going to be talking to Tom and Bill McFetridge, and they're going to give us the insight into people like Bill Ash, Jumpin' Jeff Farmer, and many more. You're going to enjoy
I feel like
it.
you're saying that wrong.
What?
Isn't it Bill Ass?
It's not Bill Ass. It's Bill Ash.
It's. Are you sure?
I'm positive. So when we come back, we're going to talk to those guys after the commercial break.
Hey, Virginia.
Hey, Dad.
In all the history of wrestling, there's obviously one stable that is the most illustrious of all. And you know who I'm talking about.
Of course.
Yeah, it's 440, one of your favorites.
My absolute favorite.
Speaking of absolute favorites, who is your favorite member of 440?
Ricky Shane Page.
Okay, I mean, that's a good choice. He's the ersatz leader, and he can do it all. World-famous deathmatch, traditional wrestling. Amazing. But no, that's not our favorite. Get it right this time. Who is our legit favorite?
It's got to be the cutest one. Atticus Kogar.
Okay, he's amazing also, and I find him a little scary, but I'm glad you think he's cute. But again, no. Who is it really?
I guess Eric Ryan.
Okay, Eric Ryan, yeah. Do all the death matches. Amazing personality, but nope. Try again.
I guess it's got to be Eddie Only because he smokes.
We do not condone smoking on this podcast. But yeah, he's fucking cool because he smokes and does tattoos. But no, that's not it. Let's try again.
I guess Nick Gage.
Jesus fuck Virginia, don't say that name. You know that 440 is going to get him because he's trying to steal their belt. But no, that's the one name you should not say. Anyway, forget those last few seconds. I don't even know what happened. I blacked out, but you got it this time. There's only one more name.
Then, if there's only one more name, it's got to be Aaron.
4-4, hell no. It's obviously Gregory Iron.
Of course, how could I have forgotten the cutest one of all?
But hey, we're here to promote TV and a movie. As you heard last time, I'm the dad.
And I'm the daughter.
And we are here to educate each other about movies.
We talk and talk about movies.
We talk so much about movies. What movies have we talked about? We've talked about The Matrix.
Don't Breathe.
Dirty Dancing.
Scott Pilgrim vs. the World.
And there's so many more to come. And you heard us last time we talked about mini episodes where we talk about random things. A little bit of a tidbit. A little smaller, so, if you're on a quick errand and you want to get a little bit of podcast amazement, Check one of those out and save the big ones for when you have more time. We talked about fun facts, movie snacks, so much music, including our theme song by the Fantastic Plastics, who are literally fantastic. We also have a healthy social media presence. What will they find there, Virginia?
You can find cute pictures of cats.
Yeah, you'll see our unofficial podcast mascot, Cheddar.
The best cat ever.
Ugh. What else will you see?
You will find us reenacting the movies.
Yes, you'll see us reenacting integral scenes from each movie. So we're really trying to create a multimedia experience. We want to be entertaining on all fronts. So where would they find us on said social media?
You can find us at Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
And what would they search for?
You can find us at TV and a Movie.
Ooh, let me verify that. Pff, I don't need to verify that because we do it. So please check us out. Listen to us. Rate us, hopefully high. What else?
Love us.
Please love us. We need that love. We're looking forward to you checking us out at TV and a Movie.
If you're in the pro wrestling or entertainment industry, you probably realize how important it is to have merchandise. Not only does it help you when it comes to bringing in additional revenue for yourself, but the look and feel of merch is a representation of the brand you're building. So you definitely don't want it to suck. Now you're probably asking yourself, well, where can I find a reliable and reputable artist that'll make me a solid t-shirt or pin design that'll make me look and feel like a superstar? Well, I've got the answer for you. Of the Dead Designs. Of the Dead Designs is a one-man merch company ran by artist Juan Ortiz. Now his name may not be familiar to you, but his artwork should be, because you've likely seen his designs on TV and Hot Topic, and he's created some of the highest-selling shirt designs in pro wrestling tees history. Of the Dead Designs has created artwork for the biggest names in WWE, AEW, ROH, Impact, New Japan Pro Wrestling, and beyond. I'm talking guys like Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, CM Punk, The Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, Road Warrior, Animal, The Lucha Brothers, Jungle Boy, even yours truly. Now you're probably saying, whoa, I'm not in the league of The Young Bucks or Hulk Hogan, brother. There's no way I can afford artwork from Of the Dead Designs. Well, I'm here to tell you you're wrong, because Of the Dead Designs is affordable. Juan isn't just looking to create art for the superstars of today, he wants to make it for the superstars of tomorrow as well. And look, Of the Dead Designs doesn't just do artwork for wrestlers. He'll create merch for your band, your podcast, your dance troupe, your kids' pee-wee football team, your daughter's school bake sale. Heck, got a girl that you're afraid to talk to, but you stalk on Instagram and like all of her photos at around 2 or 3 a.m. and you've been hoping that you get the hint like, hey, I really like you, but she has yet to slide in your DMs, and now you think, well, I got to take it to the next level, so you get Of the Dead Designs to use a photo of her ex-boyfriend as a reference to create artwork, but you replace the ex's face with your face and then present this custom artwork to the chick with hopes that she'll kiss you directly on the lips. Of the Dead Designs will do that for you. With over 14 years of experience and a portfolio of clients that speaks for itself, Of the Dead Designs will make your artwork at a reasonable price. And hey, if you mention this ad, you'll save $10 on your first design. Of the Dead Designs still has spots open for 2020, so you gotta act fast. If you're interested in a design, contact Of the Dead Designs right now on Instagram at ofthedead209, on Facebook at facebook.com/ofthedeaddesigns, or at his website, ofthedead.weebly.com. Of the Dead Designs, bringing artwork to life. Okay, well, this has been a long time coming. We've been hyping it up for a couple weeks now. Last week, if you tuned in, of course, we talked to IPW professional wrestler Richie Rouge, and we sort of alluded to the show and how it got produced. And I did the digging, and I found that Ozark Video still exists to this day, Ozark Film and Video, and I found the two men behind that company, Tom and Bill. And guys, I can't thank you enough for joining me today to talk IPW and this television show that has sort of become stuff of legend on the internet.
Sure, that was great. I met Bill Ash, who was the main, at least from my perspective, the main wrestler and kind of the coordinator of it. And I met him. Tom was probably about 2 years old when I first met him. He was first wrestling on a television station that I was a producer for. And so I met him there, and he continued to wrestle, and he was trying to set up different wrestling around Arkansas and Oklahoma. And he had I don't know if you know, he had a large boot company in Paris, Arkansas. And he ended up making boots for wrestlers and boxers and became fairly famous for that. And he's passed away, but he lived in Paris for quite a while. And when he quit wrestling, he just went into total boot making, but for probably 10 years or 15 years. And we worked on a couple of different projects. By the time I started the company, Tom was older, and I think you were in high school, weren't you, Tom, when we did that first event?
Yeah, I was a senior.
Yeah, and Tom was already operating cameras when he was 12 years old. So we brought him on, and we did the standard things with that. I don't know what you've been seeing, but we tried to copy that. We would do the matches, we would do the interviews. It was really, very budget kind of stuff, but to say the least. But we had a good time, and we actually built our studio. And before we completely finished it, we actually did a match in there with an audience and everything else. And they did I'm not sure you've seen it, but they had one of these, I can't remember what they call it, but they all got in there and started fighting. It was like a cage match without the cage, and they were throwing each other out and everything. So, it was pretty humorous, but we actually did another event in a rodeo grounds, which was our only real venue back then to do something in. And we had a small audience, but they were passionate about it. And Bill was, he loved wrestling, and he really wanted to be successful. And he ended up, he was on a few national television shows. He played a wrestler on Fantasy Island, which was an old TV show that was on in the 70s. And I was watching it one night, and there was Bill Ash and one of the other guys that came out, and they had just a little walk-on cameo part. So he really tried, but we enjoyed it. They had some special moves. I remember he was from Arkansas, so he had a guy who did the Razorback heart attack, and he would hit a guy in the chest, and the guy would flop around on the ground and palpitate like he was having a heart attack. So, but it was, even though it was kind of humorous, they were getting hurt and they were throwing each other around, and it was serious stuff in a way.
Yeah. I always say that the best way I've heard wrestling described is, even though it's predetermined, we get hurt in ways that we plan on getting hurt. So it's still sort of absurd that we're out there doing this, right? But you guys really patterned the show off of a lot of studio wrestling at the time, like you were sort of alluding to, Bill. Like, I mean, you guys had the interviews backstage with Buddy Lee, and a lot of the guys were doing that. Of course, you did the stuff within the venue you guys were working with. Talk to me about talking with Bill about running those first tapings, because when I spoke to Richie Rouge, he alluded to the fact that there was originally a pilot done, and then after the fact, you guys started filming after in almost like a corner of a studio of sorts where they also did the news. Do you remember that?
Yeah. I mean, I think that was at the one of the television stations early on. And then what happens is the television station, they gave it a little bit of time, and then it didn't work out. And then Bill came back to me when he found out they started the company, and said, "Hey, remember when we were doing that?" And we started working together. And I can't remember how many events we actually recorded. There were several, and it got to the point where he even brought a guy named Nitro, who was from the bigger circuit. And Nitro was so big that he came in, walked into my office, and had to duck under my 7-foot-high doorway to get in. He was a massive guy. So he was hanging with some of what turned into, I think, the WWF people. I'm not sure when that started, but when it became even bigger time. But and then we would do, he was a promoter, and he would continue to try to promote it. So.
Gotcha. Now, Tom, you now, of course, are the official owner of Ozark Film and Video. But back then, like we sort of talked about, you were just in high school, and you were basically just running the cords, right?
Yep. I was running around behind one of our key cameramen, and I just either carrying a battery belt, or the connecting cable, depending. And so just running around the side of the stage, a lot of those side shots where we're right in close, I'm just following the guy around, making sure he doesn't have to worry about, tripping over something. And judging by my age at the time, I probably did not do a great job of even that, but it was a tremendous experience to see something come from nothing. When you look at it now in the context of what is achievable today, it looks pretty silly. But the funny part about all of that is you literally just walk into an empty, almost barn and turn it into a wrestling match in a couple of days and then tear it all down. Definitely smaller crowds than we're used to and smaller venues. But from my perspective at that age, that was what was impressive to me. It was like, man, we walked into this building, it was empty, and we walked out of here having thrown a wrestling match, essentially.
Yeah, no, it's interesting stuff. Now, from what Richie was telling me, because in the footage there was usually about maybe 40 people in the crowd, but you guys would pipe in crowd noise. And in the COVID era of pro wrestling, that's a pretty constant thing now. But for the time period, that was sort of unheard of. Do you guys remember at all whose idea it was to pipe in the crowd noise? Would that have been a Bill Ash call, or was that something that you guys came up to just to sort of make it a bigger television-like presentation?
Yeah, I think it was us. We were used to working on bigger projects, and we knew we had to cover it. And so we tried. We tried also to put some lighting sometimes to block, so you couldn't tell how many people were there. We would try to lower some lights on some of the shots. But yeah, the effects and stuff. And Bill would work closely with us on it. He would, he'd come and ask questions and try to do stuff. And of course, and sometimes what would happen is we would be doing other projects, and so it'd be like, well, we'll try to get back to it, and then the match would close in on us, and we'd have to be ready. But he brought his own ring. He had a ring that he could assemble and put together, and we would usually get an area, and then we'd put the chairs up in our studio. We would put the chairs up, and they got a pretty good crowd. I mean, like you say, 40 people, but we would try to put them in a group so we could see, their faces, and they were still passionate. Sometimes the crowd was as passionate as the wrestlers were. So I guess that's still the case, isn't it? Sometimes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, especially in the era where we don't get fans, I think we appreciate them more than ever because they add so much to the atmosphere and the feel of everything. And without those people to play off of, sometimes as a performer, you need that adrenaline rush. And especially when you're beating your body up, when there's no one there to kind of look at and psych you up, it's kind of depressing to say the least.
Yeah.
Now,
well, I was always impressed with, at first I thought, well, because it would be like, tell us when you hear the announcer say there's so much time left, it's, we would have some cues when we knew it was going to happen, but they still got, I was impressed sometimes they would come out bleeding and hurt, and, they were putting themselves into it. They weren't faking that part, at all. They were throwing each other down that mat. I know he had a kind of a spring to the more to the stage to help, but still they'd come off the top and land on their back, and I used to think, I don't know how you can do that, but they did, and they enjoyed it. And they wouldn't, the thing that was interesting is the guys weren't really making any money. They were doing this, and most of them had day jobs, and this was their passion. So they'd come out and wrestle all night for $20 or something, whatever Bill could scrape up at the time. So that was always kind of impressive because it was almost like, boy, if we can just make it, it had that entrepreneurial kind of spirit to it that way.
So, you talking about like you guys obviously knew that wrestling was predetermined. I mean, at this point, wrestling people are being smart enough to professional wrestling. So you guys know that there's something, a little off, right?
Sure.
Now, does Bill Ash smarten you guys up at all as far as like, for example, if a wrestler is going to blade, which means, cut themselves open to bleed, like maybe don't have a tight shot on the guy, or does he instruct you guys at all of how to produce the show, or is this all coming up how to do it?
No, we'd get together and they would cut the tables. We had those old fashioned kind of wooden tables with the metal frames. And I remember they would cut the bottom of the frame, and when they threw somebody on the table, it would collapse because the metal that was supporting it was gone. And one time guy got cut real bad that way because the wood splintered, but yeah, we knew it was going to happen, or throw somebody out of the ring because we had to make sure we were out of the way. I know Tom probably, like the camera people, got a lot of sweat on them and maybe some blood. You know, it was because you were right into the action there, and they would. They were going at it. So, yeah, but we would kind of get together, and then he had there was a guy who was early on. His name was Doc, and I can't remember his last name.
Doc Savage.
Yeah, Doc Savage, and he was kind of he was about my size, a skinny little guy, and he would antagonist. And then he had I can't remember if Bulldozer or one of his guys would be back there, and then they start coming after Doc. It was. You know, he'd kind of run away and they'd chase me, you know, so it was, you know, we'd get a kick out of that part.
You know, now that you bring up Doc Savage, so I think one of the better parts of the show that at least is available online that we've seen, there's 4 full episodes. Actually, technically, Richie Rouge claims that these 4 episodes are actually 8 episodes, but regardless, this is what's on the internet. Doc Savage has a segment on the show called The Unfair Advantage, A Visit with the Doc. Do you remember filming these segments at all?
I do.
Okay,
Yeah,
Tom, were you a part of that at all?
I wasn't a part of those, unfortunately. Okay. I'm learning as much as you today.
Okay. Bill,
I'm loving it.
Give me the rundown, Bill, on this segment.
Well, I mean, Doc came in and he and Bill, he was kind of, he and Bill produced together. Doc was kind of a little bit of the brains of the whole thing. I mean, he came in and he would help Bill. I don't know what his background was, but I had the feeling he had been in other wrestling organizations and came, you know, and I don't remember, there was a couple of big ones back then, but I don't remember what they were all kind of, it became WWF, but it wasn't that at the time. I don't remember, but they had some pretty good wrestlers, and he had been on that circuit, and there was some similar kind of events or people doing that. So I'm a big mouth, but I'm not much, but I got my guys here to take care of me. It was kind of the routine that they played, and they, a couple of times he got chased around or that kind of thing, but you could tell he was part of the producer. He had experience, and Bill looked up to him a little bit. He knew that Doc kind of had been around and knew the stuff. So he was one of the key ones who kept it going for a while. Doc was, I think, Bill was always trying to scrape money together. He's trying to get producers, and he would go make boots or whatever he did, and then he'd take some of that money and put it back into the next event. And we were always, I think as a company, I'm sure I lost quite a bit of money, but I liked wrestling. In fact, when I was a kid, I was probably 12 years old. Minneapolis is where I grew up, and they had a live wrestling on Channel 11, which was an independent channel. And I went there several times when I was probably 10, 12 years old, and I loved it, and we kind of, we got into it. It was, what I always liked is that if there was a clean cut looking guy, we knew he was going to go down, and because these other guys, Tiny Mills, all these guys had this long hair, and they'd be real, and even back then in the 70s, they started bringing in when the oil crisis happened, all of a sudden there was a Sheik, and so I kind of realized, they're kind of going after the political thing here, but to get the crowd, it's kind of like the Ford and Chevy at a hot rod race. It was like you get people that like this guy and this guy in the crowd would kind of keep going. So it was fun, and Bill had some fans that would come with him too. He had people that would follow him around Arkansas. They loved him. Just unfortunately never kind of could ever springboard into what he wanted, I don't think.
Sure. Now, there's been a little bit of a discrepancy as to what year this all took place. Richie Rouge claims that it might have been filmed, according to him, around 88 or 89 and then aired on TV, but the copyright at the end of the broadcast on YouTube says 1994. So he sort of alluded to the fact that it might have re-aired on another station in 1994, or what's the situation with that?
Yeah, I think he's closer to 89 because we built the studio that we had at the time in 89 and 90. And so we were taping then, and Doc Savage was actually around probably in 88, 87, 88. And then, we worked with him, and then up through probably about 90, maybe 90 or 91, something like that. And then it kind of disappeared again for a while. And then Bill came back and bought a tape machine that would allow him to take the tapes that we had. And so I believe he ended up with the final tapes. So he may have re-aired them after we were involved. But I think you're right on the 88, 89. That was really kind of when they were really trying to do it at that point. So
was the match we did, because we did a match in 94. That was actually the one that Andy Shoeline and I were at and everything. But
Yeah, that may have been, and that maybe they reran some of the events then. You know, it was stretched out. Possibly, I didn't realize it was that late '94, but yeah, because I guess if you're that old, so yeah, and that was at the rodeo arena.
It definitely was. It definitely was. And
Yeah,
I thought that's what I was watching on the videos, but it may have been.
No, and it may have been that. It may have been that because it was a lot. If there was about 40 or 50 people there, you could probably tell the background would have been a smaller, you know, they had the wooden beams, and I'd have to see it, but you know, we had to kind of set up in a, you know,
this may have been the stuff from the studio, because I think you guys had some, like, a big muslin sheet behind everybody in the stuff that I watched.
Yeah.
So this may have been some older material than I was privy to.
Interesting. Wow, this is all, man, I'm so glad we're having this conversation, because, you know, the internet has wondered about this for a long time, mostly because of the promos, particularly as we alluded to before we started recording, one Jumping Jeff Farmer. Now, Bill, you haven't seen any of this stuff online, have you?
No, and I probably should have watched it before we talked.
Okay, I'm gonna have to send you some of this stuff. So the Jumpin' Jeff Farmer promo is sort of infamous. I mean, it's almost got 1 million views on YouTube.
Wow.
Do you?
That's hilarious.
Do you remember doing more than one take with any of these promos? Because I feel like it was one and done with a lot of these, because these guys are stammering over their words, and it's not the best.
It was like we were in a hurry to say, and Bill would kind of orchestrate those even when he wasn't on the screen. And I remember, you know, Jumpin' Jeff was he was, I mean, they all had personalities, but you know, I remember, you know, them in the studio, they all had this battle royale or something, and that's when they were jumping off the top of the, you know, ropes on each other and stuff. And I think I don't know what his promo was, but was he trying to just promote the next event? I don't know what he was.
If I wanted to, I could do the whole promo verbatim. I mean, I've watched it so many times, but you know, basically the ring announcer Buddy Lee asked him, Jumpin' Jeff, what a match you have with Motley, which would be Motley Cruz. And he goes, yep, maybe the hardest match I ever had in my life. I don't like it when things aren't going my way. Motley Cruz, you turn the tables on me. You turn the tables in the wrong way. You got me mad now. And he keeps going, and it's very bad, but it's on YouTube, labeled as the best wrestling promo of all time, obviously, so people will watch it, and it's the clickbait. But they're definitely something to behold. Now, one of the guys that was obviously a constant in all these backstage promos was Buddy Lee. Now, according to the individual that uploaded this stuff to YouTube, by the name of Honeydew Wilkins, he was training at a school in Oklahoma where he was given these tapes. And in his digging over the years, he found out supposedly that Buddy Lee worked as a station and actually during the day did a children's television program. Do you know anything about Buddy Lee?
Right. I think that is right. He worked, I'm trying to remember which station he was at, but he would show up, you know, just for us for the events. But he and Bill had found him. He and Bill had built that relationship. So we didn't really supply Buddy, but he worked at the station, and I think he did that kind of program, and maybe even like one of these noon talk programs or something. He was on the air here for a while. I don't recall which network he's connected to, but and then he liked wrestling too. He liked doing the interviews, and I think he had some, if I remember right, he had some pretty good expressions, and you know, he'd watch some of the other stuff where he'd just leave the mic there for him, and you know.
Right. Now, Tom, being so young, being around this at the time, what are your memories of being around IPW back then? And were you a wrestling fan at all, or was this just something that you were just running the cords for?
I mean, we played the wrestling game on Nintendo all the time. You know, the Hulkster was huge in the 80s, you know, Randy Macho Man, Snap Into It, you know, all that.
Yeah.
I did have to go unearth this. So this is
that's Bulldozer, right?
This is Bulldozer, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So I'll scan this and get it sent to you.
Please.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was for me, it was a real interesting thing because, yeah, I mean, we grew up kind of watching wrestling. I knew the difference between wrestling and boxing, of course, and all of that. It was the 80s and 90s were, as you know, a pretty neat era for both boxing and wrestling. Ultimate had not quite come up to mainstream by that point. So those were really the two big fighting things that you would see on American television. And so we loved wrestling. And so I think that's probably why I was involved with this, because it was something that was actually kind of fun. Most of the time we would be making videos that, help train Tyson employees or something like that, or one of the large trucking companies or Walmart video or something like that. So this was definitely something that was a lot more fun. And so, I remember kind of jumping at the chance, and then the personalities and watching it was a microcosmic version of what the big leagues were doing, and so that was kind of the fun part of it, and it really was like the interviews, the pre and post round interviews where the hype guys are getting it all crazy. I mean, that part of it, and seeing just sort of the local version of that was the fun part. And
Absolutely.
I think one of the real interesting things I've thought of since we've been talking is just how much our population has grown here. I think back then, if I'm not mistaken, we probably had 80 or 90,000 people in the entire region. That was probably about it. And we're just over 500,000 now. So to think about if something like that were to pop up again in this era, it would have the potential of being immensely successful compared to, you could have 1,000 people there instead of, 40 or 50, just because we have so many more people here.
Yeah.
Now, early on, they did when I first met Bill, he was working out of, they had the Fort Smith, which is a pretty good sized town, even back then, auditorium. And there was, at those events, which we taped for when I was working for one of the local television stations, I'm not sure where those masters ended up, but they had big crowds there. There was probably a couple hundred people there. So, and they would go wild. And so when Bill was trying to kind of gem that up again, but he never quite got and it was tough. It was tough to promote, and tough to get people out there. Today with Facebook and everything, all the different social medias, you could probably get it out there, but Bill was putting posters up in all the small convenience markets and hanging up where he could, just trying to get people to come out the tickets were extremely cheap, like, a couple of dollars each. It was like, we just wanted to get him in the door, to make a background. So, but
Right.
like I said, the auditorium, for whatever group that was that Bill first spun off of, they had it going for a while. So
Now, Richie Rouge alluded to the fact that there might have been some house shows, which in wrestling terms would be usually untelevised events. But were these house shows, were there ever a time where you guys would have been present at these to just film them for practice or anything like that?
I mean, we probably the one or two that you'd see were almost that way anyway. We just showed up and had cameras and tried to follow the action. But, we did have cues. They have announcers. In fact, Doc would help the announcers sometimes with color. I think when he first got, started announcing, is it Buddy? I can't remember the announcer that's famous.
Buddy Lee.
Yeah, Buddy Lee. I'm pretty sure I remember Doc kind of the first time Buddy Lee and Doc worked together. Doc was kind of giving him here's what we talk about. Here's, I remember seeing that conversation ahead of time. So I think he learned from him, and then Bill and Buddy became close. And so, because Buddy wanted it to go too. He wanted to be, he liked it and was looking for a way out of his day gig, I think, just like the wrestlers were. So
Sure. Now, in comparison, because Tom, you alluded to it earlier, I mean, you guys over the years have done very legit productions. Even for that period of time, you guys were doing really legit stuff. So like wrestling, particularly IPW, as you guys said, this was like a lower budget thing. So like, talk to me about some of the other stuff that you guys have produced over the years during that time period, and Tom, as of today.
Sure.
Well,
Go ahead, Bill, on the legacy stuff for me.
back then, what we were is we were a full service film and video company. So we did a lot of film commercials. We did promos for the different some of our main clients. So a lot of the stuff we would go and we were doing recipe development for Tyson Foods and for General Mills, and so we were a kind of a supplier for that. So those would be big ticket, a lot of hands on deck, and wrestling was kind of a passionate thing for us. In fact, when we did some of these things, we made no money. We just went into it with them just to try to, it's like, yeah, we'll get this going. I was interested in doing it. Even there was another guy at the time who was another big producer in the state, Gary Jones at Jones Productions. And when he found out, he goes, man, I'd like to get involved. I've always liked wrestling. There's something about it for TV people, and maybe it's because of our youth, but so I would say out of IPW, I don't think we probably ever made any money and probably lost quite a bit of money, but it was one of those things we did for love. It wasn't, we didn't do it just because we got paid. We did it because we wanted to. So it's always different. And I think, Tom has carried it on, and in our corporate, we became more and more corporate video people. And in fact, Tom and I spent about a decade down in Houston working for several large oil and petrochemical companies. And that was really kind of where we ended up going.
Yeah, so in 2000, we had a client. It was Phillips 66, and I think it was May of 2000. Phillips 66 merged with Conoco, and they became ConocoPhillips. For about 5 or 6 years, all the oil companies started conglomerating, just jamming together, you'd get one company with a really weak part of their organization, and they would combine, a joint venture with another, a company that was much smarter or much better at doing that, but maybe needed some technology exchanged in another area. And so there were a lot of these happening. And so a few people that we were working with in Oklahoma, which is just right down the road, ended up down in Houston, Texas. And so we spent, Bill and I together probably spent about 12 years down there working. And then I continued down there for, golly, it's almost 20 total by the time it's all said and done. But we traveled to, how many countries do you think, Bill? 12?
I've been about 15 since then. So didn't see you wrestling in any of them though.
Yeah, no, we just really focused on doing lots of high-end corporate work. And, COVID's really brought us back to our own region. I'm trying to make more sustainable relationships in my own market now. It's COVID's given us that opportunity. But we always, when these sorts of things come up, I always have two thoughts. Like, this sounds like fun, and don't get ripped off. Promoters, I won't even call out wrestling promoters in particular. Promoters in general can be
Right.
An interesting group to work with, although so can film guys. So, it goes both ways on that for sure. But I would say one of the ones that stuck out in my head as far as projects was I want to say it was either 1999, somewhere between 1999 and 2001. Bill and I were hired almost as like a camera set. So you had a group of people that were there making a production, and I believe we were augmenting their production. I could be wrong on that. Bill would know those details more than me, but we ended up over at the Randall Tyson Track Center at the University of Arkansas, and that had some big names at it, and that had a huge crowd at it. I remember at one point running down the sort of the runway in between, where the wrestlers come out, and the crowd standing there being told to just scream and yell at anybody that runs through. And as the ham that I've always been, I'm running through this big crowd of people and was not going to lose out on the opportunity to get some cheers. So I'm running through there just screaming, "I am Battery Boy!" And I might as well have been Keith Richards. I mean, people went crazy. It was hilarious. But
who
Bill
was
had
it
some.
who was it that threatened me, Tom? Remember, I was shooting.
God,
I was following the guy with those. He was a African American who was big
Booker
at the
T.
time. Yeah,
Yeah,
I was
Booker
following
T.
him out of this backstage, and when I got back there, who was it that yelled at me?
He had a real normal name, and I remembered it. I've remembered it before when talking to Greg, but I can't remember it right
What
now.
was it, Booker T?
It wasn't
No, it was
Booker T. He was really nice. It was
Steve Austin. It was some.
it was Stone Cold Steve Austin.
That's who it was, Steve Austin. And of course, I got backstage, and there was they had girls there that were from the strip club to be. He looked at me. He said, "If you shoot that camera back here again, I'm going to shove it up your back end." Except he was a little more descriptive.
Sure.
And I just looked at the camera and thought, "Yeah, I bet he could." And I just backed her. Later he said, we don't film backstage. That's our, I didn't realize that I was into what was happening. Booker was getting the crowd, and all of a sudden so I thought, okay, I learned my lesson there.
Wow.
Bill Ash never threatened me, but he did. And he was twice as loud as I was. So.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know that Bill Ash was a okay guy.
Bill Ash was really a good guy. He was. I mean, he tried, and he was never. I mean, he always tried to work things around. But like I said, one time he came in with Nitro, who was. I've never seen a man that big, and he had to duck under the door, and he was one of the ones on the circuit. Bill was trying to kind of get those guys to come through. So, but Tom's talking about something we got hired. It was a totally different group that did that.
Totally.
Right.
Yeah, very different deal.
Yeah.
I got you. It sounds a little bit bigger time, and especially in 99 through 2001. I mean, that period in wrestling was like the boom period. When you talk 80s wrestling, like 85 through 88 and 89 was like huge, but then, 97 through 2001 was tremendous. But back to IPW for a second.
Sure.
I'm just gonna name through some wrestlers on the roster, and if you guys have any memories of them at all, just throw it at me. What comes to mind? Okay. The Gorgeous JR.
I don't remember him.
That's fine. You're allowed not to remember. You alluded to the Bulldozer. Do you have any good Bulldozer stories?
Well, the Bulldozer story, the thing I remember about Bulldozer is one of our camera operators came back, and he went backstage, and Bulldozer was standing there naked, which was a little shock to him. And he was talking to somebody, who what Frank said was, Bulldozer said, a guy can do pretty well living on welfare. And so we always kind of remembered that as okay, that's where Bulldozer is right now. He doesn't have a job. He's trying to, but and so he was happy to get the $20. I remember that line. That was what we kind of remembered in our head. I'm not sure what he was. He was one of the ones that was popular, Bulldozer. I guess I don't know why, but he was he was more of the bad guy. Bill was like the kind of the hero type. When he got out there, they were cheering for him, and he was always. And Bulldozer was one of them. He banged around a little bit. So
Gotcha.
That was the deal,
Okay, what about? Do you remember Tony the Spider?
I do remember Tony the Spider. Yeah, he was. Yeah, I remember him.
Any stories about Tony?
Well, I think it was he, and there were some Native Americans. I don't remember what they went by.
The Mighty Nation.
Okay. Yeah. They got into a kind of a backstage row one time. It was probably about like somebody stealing some of their lunch or something, but they and the Nation, there was one guy that was big. I remember him, and he was, and at one point Bill had to get in there and interrupt him. So they usually got along pretty good, but like any group, was any end. And so I remember that's what I recall about him. And I think that Bill was going to have them wrestle and change the venue because he thought there might be some real problems from it. That's what I remember about the Spider, was that he caused that issue. I don't know what is he in the videos that you see? Is he?
Oh yeah. He's one of the better promo guys too.
Yeah. He was always mad. I don't remember who there was somebody else that he would, they had it kind of, but every once in a while there'd be a row for real. Sometimes it was like, I guess that probably happens with you guys. I don't know.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's always.
That's what I recall about them, because I remember that the Indian guys, they came in a little later You know, I mean, I met them, they weren't the first round, but despite it, he was there the whole time, I think, if I recall.
Gotcha. Random thought that we didn't sort of touch on. How long was a day of recording for you guys usually when you'd come in to do a show?
Oh, well, since they were kind of events, like the studio we went on, you know, it would be a full day setup and everything. And then the shows would go on for probably 3 hours, 2 to 3 hours, you know, and they would have a break. And then one time with the audience, we were doing the interviews during intermission, you know, we'd be back there and there'd still be a crowd. And then we did them in front of the crowd, I think. You know,
Wow.
They had some backstage trying in front of them, but I don't know if they ever used those because the crowd started getting too loud. You know, we were scrapping around, and Buddy was, I think, doing a lot with just a handheld mic, if I remember right. I think that's the technique that we used. I don't think we ever mic'd the guys up. We may have, but I don't recall that. But,
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's what I remember about that. So I'm trying to think of some of the. I remember it was a Jumpin' Jeff Farmer. Is that the one you asked about?
Yeah.
I remember that name, but I don't remember him much. I don't remember too much about him.
Did you get the picture I texted you a minute ago?
No.
Yeah, you should totally look at that.
Yeah,
Oh,
it might that someone made some artwork not too long ago of these guys, and it might jog your memory a little bit.
Oh yeah. Old Del Buckingham. I remember that. I remember him.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember him. And now Gypsy, I'm not sure, was she involved in the matches too that you saw?
She was with Bulldozer, and apparently
That's right.
according to Richie Rouge in the storyline, which we've never seen this online because there's only so many episodes, Richie Rouge ends up turning into a bad guy, and Gypsy leaves Bulldozer for Richie Rouge.
I do remember that. And they said, you know, they kind of went through that because Gypsy was small and I remember, I think Bulldozer was crying, you know, I kind of remember they played it up pretty big, I think, and he was gonna get him, and you know, that's I guess that's what you need. But yeah,
Sure, totally.
I remember Gypsy now. Yeah, she.
Oh my God, I'm just dying looking at these pictures, man.
Yeah. Well, again, like, who would have thought that something so absurd that you guys filmed, you know, 30 years ago would be on the internet and be this sensation of sorts, right?
Yeah, I'm surprised. I mean, you know, it was fun for us, but I just thought, well, it'll never go anywhere, you know?
Right.
And I'm not sure. Do you know when Bill passed? Do you know how long he's been? It's been a while. That Bill Ash.
So Bill Ash is still alive. Because Richie Rouge said he was friends with him on Facebook. And so I found Bill Ash and I friended him, but apparently he never goes on there. So in my infinite wisdom, I scrolled through his timeline and I found his daughter, and I messaged his daughter, and his daughter said that at some point she's going to let Bill know, and he's going to try to reach out to me. So he's still around.
That's surprising because I know of a guy in Springdale who he's actually the superintendent of schools now and came from Paris. And when we talked, I thought he told me because I said, oh, you're from Paris, Arkansas. I used to work, Bill Ash, he was a great guy. So I was under the impression that he wasn't around. So maybe he is, and that's great. Because I thought he had passed away, and you know, I didn't try to get in touch with him after that. So
Sure.
Yeah, well, I hope you do hear from him. You know?
Yeah. It would be great because, you know, until I talked to Richie and then a couple people reached out to me after the fact, I didn't even know he was such a big boot maker. Apparently back in the day, he was like the wrestling boot guy. He's the one that started making wrestling boots.
I think he actually did some boxing for some of the main liners too. I think he made boots for some of the guys that were actually in contention. I mean, that became a pretty good business for him for a while. And, you know, he made them for all, I think, it started because I think he made them for all the guys that he had. He was bringing them in. He would supply that. He had the ring. Bill was the guy who kind of knew, I think, where to get a hold of all this stuff. He bought, you know, the ring was something because I helped set it up a couple of times, and it was, I don't know where he got it, but it was great. It came up and it had the colors, and it had the protective corners so they could throw each other in the corner, and the ropes were. You know, and he knew just how to do it. So I'm not sure where Bill got his training, but he'd been around it quite a while by the time he started with us. I think he probably did it from when he was a kid. I don't know. You know,
sure.
Out of school, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Now
I'm surprised he's still alive. I mean, that's good. That's great.
You know, no, I'm definitely a positive. You want to be alive.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
All right. I'm doing research over here, like trying to find him. I found some Facebook presence and some stuff like that. Yeah, that's wild. I didn't know.
That's good. That's great. I was just, for some reason, after talking to this, person from Paris, I just assumed he'd passed away. Now, he doesn't have a son named Bill, does he? I don't think.
That I don't know.
I don't know if he had any. I don't remember him having a son at all. So.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But, so for some reason, this IPW became a big sensation on the internet a decade ago, and everyone still talks about it. I actually located Jumpin' Jeff Farmer, but apparently he's had a lot of concussions and he wasn't comfortable doing an interview, but he did send me like a written statement about how important IPW was to him and his time in wrestling, how much he enjoyed it. But a lot of people have been wondering about just the history. So I really appreciate you guys sort of filling in the blanks. But here's the big question though. Okay. And Tom, I was talking to you about it. Only 8 of these episodes exist on the internet. And I think with the story of IPW, it really sort of puts a spotlight on the importance of back in the day when television wasn't as big as it is now, the importance of those people that put a tape in the VCR and recorded it. Because the only reason why we know IPW exists is because some guy in Oklahoma recorded these shows sometime in 1994, and then through legend, to a wrestling student in Oklahoma, he got a hold of these tapes and put them online. So
they're VHS versions of it then.
Right. So in saying that, Tom, Bill, what are the odds that there are some masters somewhere and that perhaps one day we could probably see the whole IPW library?
Well, what I recall, and we've got a catalog, so I can look through it, but I do know that Bill at one time, we did them on 1-inch videotape, which was the predecessor to beta, and it was before digital. Yeah, it was for digital domain, and so it was the broadcast quality stuff back in the late 80s, and so they were big reel-to-reels, kind of like an audio reel-to-reel tape, and they were 1 inch wide. And I thought that Bill ended up with them, but there's a chance because we've got some of that stuff in storage, and I'm supposed to be getting it out. Tom's, wanting me to get it out of storage anyway. So as we go through this, if I can find them, if I find them, I can certainly, anything we find, I'd be glad to forward to you, and we could make copies of it, digital copies of it, and get it to you. So I can probably, have you researched our catalog at all, Tom? Do you know if they're on there in the?
I haven't actually looked in our numbers catalog.
We got a tremendously large, because we started in the 80s and we ran videotape all the way up into the 2000s. So we have a lot of tapes, and the formats kept changing, but we've got the machines. I've got a 1-inch machine. So if I can find the masters, I can probably, I'll be able to get them digitized. So what I can do is I can look and I can send you a message if I find them. It'll take me a couple of days, but if we find them, I'd be thrilled to do it. And we've probably got something there. I don't know if we've got all those masters, because I don't remember exactly. A lot of times we would do the show and then we would send it off, and I'm not sure who was airing it, and even where those different episodes went. The Oklahoma one must have come from, if he was in Eastern Oklahoma, it was probably from the Fort Smith, Fayetteville market somewhere, so he may have gotten it from our local area here. So. But I'll be glad to look and see what I can find.
Listen, I think a lot of people would be thrilled if you could find some footage.
I have no idea. I'll certainly look if it's going to help out. If we could find Bill, I'd like to talk to him again. Like I said, I was under the impression he was no longer with us. So if he's around, that'd be fun to talk to him again and see how he's doing. What he's up to. I'm not surprised that these guys got hurt, because they would do some stuff. I thought, man, that's got to, it cannot be good for you. They'd be falling out of the ring on concrete and everything, but they were so tough that they didn't want to show it.
Absolutely. Well, if I hear from Bill Ash, I'll make sure to
let him know.
Message you and let you know for sure. Overall, Bill, Tom, the legacy of Ozark Film and Video still exists today, but what do you guys think, knowing now that this is online, what do you think the legacy of your experience in pro wrestling is with IPW?
Well, I'm excited to hear that people liked it, because to be honest with you, when we invested all that, I thought, well, this was just something we wanted to do, and there won't be any profit from it. Not only profit, but just no use of it. It's nice to know people are enjoying it. for me. I'm surprised, and it's kind of nice to hear. So.
Tom, what do you think?
I think it's, I've worked in the business long enough now to see how work that you do several years beforehand ends up in interesting places. I had mentioned before when we talked before these interviews that we've had training videos for police departments go viral because of the nature of the imagery and things like that. And so and I also grew up, big Dolomite fan and stuff like that. So sort of the ironic nature of enjoying something that's a little campy, but when you put it in context and understand where it came from, it's still a bit of an artwork one way or another, and so I think it's cool. I think it's cool because I know, when you stack it up next to WWF or whatever was going on at the time, sure, it was a small Arkansas production, but I do think that people do get some genuine enjoyment out of stuff like this when you see it. It's and I think the fact that it's sort of turned some of these folks who were just weekend warriors into sort of cult legends, I think that's even cooler. For Bulldozer and some of these other folks, I think it's really kind of neat that their legend and their story lives on, even if there's a little bit of tongue in cheek to it. I think that's still really, really.
Where'd you find that picture?
It's when we were moving, I unearthed a giant box of photos, and of course this one was primed to be on the top of the stack. So I just thought about when we were talking, I was like, oh, I have that picture of that one guy.
I'm so glad you got it. And listen, I'm so glad we had this conversation. I got to say, IPW has brought me and a lot of other folks a lot of joy, but I think I speak for everybody that's going to hear this interview that I think hearing the other side of the things when it comes to the production and the passion that went along with producing IPW, I think people are going to look at this with another perspective. So I can't thank you guys enough. And Tom, if someone wanted to contact you guys for film or video production, how could they do so? And what kind of stuff are you guys producing today?
I appreciate that. We do training. We do commercials. We do lots of web promotions for corporations. We can honestly work at the highest or lowest scale. We've done lots and lots of work in the Houston market for some of the world's largest corporations. And then of course here in Walmart land and all of that as well. We were at Tyson last week. And so, yeah, we're at ozarkvideo.com. We're also on Facebook and Instagram. So.
Awesome. Bill, what are you doing these days?
Well, I was a pilot when I was a kid. And so when the drones came out and the fact that we had video involved, I started droning probably in 2010. And so now I've got representation and I do everything from mapping to video. In fact, I was working on a video to promote the sale of a Taco Bell in Oklahoma. I get hired and I go over, I shoot the Taco Bell and I put a few graphics on it and send it off to a company. So I'm doing quite a bit of that. I've got actually, Tom and I were involved in a bilingual children's program that was aired in the 2007 to 2009. And Tom was actually a talent in that. And so I'm trying to reconfigure that with a younger, we're taking some of the ideas now and we're retroing it. So I'm hoping now that the COVID, it kind of interrupted us. We were in production. I had, some younger, we got a couple of people in their mid-20s that are bilingual and we got their kids and we got some Anglo kids and we're trying to put that together. So I'm thinking that may come back around. So I've been working between that and doing some drone work and then just some other stuff, on the side. I've been retired, but I can't sit still. So. That's what I do. The drone work's been fun, and I still help Tom some with that. And occasionally he'll use me for a teleprompter or something. But I'm just kind of enjoying kicking back a little bit. So.
Heck yeah. Well, when you're passionate about something, it's hard to give it up even after retirement. But I'm glad you're staying busy, and I'm so glad you guys are still producing content, and I can't thank you fellas enough for taking the time to talk with me today. It's been a real honor and pleasure, and hopefully I could be talking to you guys in the near future.
All right.
That's great, Greg.
Thank you so much.
All right.
That was the interview with Tom and Bill McFetridge. We thank those guys so much for taking the time to talk with us. A lot of insight into international pro wrestling. And again, much like with Richie Rouge, a different perspective on the product. And hopefully, sometime in the near future, we get possession of that IPW footage.
Wow. Would you have to sign a contract?
I don't think so, but, from what I understand, you were telling me that you have signed a major contract.
I sure have. I wasn't going to announce it. I was going to keep it a secret for a while. But I think I'm ready to announce it today. Right here. Right now.
Mm-hmm.
In front of all these people.
Yeah, well, people are salivating in anticipation to hear the news. I mean, I can hear the dog panting repetitively in the background.
That's right.
So who did you sign with? Are you doing commentary for AEW? Are you doing something with the WWE, Impact? Or who have you signed with? I mean, we're going to miss you here on the show.
Well, I signed a contract. I guess it's probably going to be all over the internet, so I may as well just say it now. I signed a contract. A long time ago, I owned a wrestling federation called Burning River Wrestling.
Okay.
And the river burned. It burned long and hard and prosperous.
Yeah.
But there comes a point in every man's life where he has to move on from his dreams. And I was made an offer that I cannot refuse. I'd like to announce that I have sold the rights to Burning River Wrestling.
Wait, what?
I have signed a contract. Signed, sealed, delivered. My attorney, I think you know him, the gavel, David Lawless, has looked over this official document that I will forward to you, and you can put on the Iron on Wrestling Patreon.
Okay.
And if you want to just put it out on Twitter and whatever else you want to do, we can do that. Because everything is official, and it's been approved by my trusting attorney.
Wait. So this promotion, which was like a joke that you ran once in like 2007.
Yes.
You sold the rights to it?
Yes. I was approached by a guy by the name of Chuck White Sox Johnson. You may know him as.
Okay, yeah, I do.
Okay,
No.
or Johnny Blaze.
Yeah.
Or the young gun Chris Gunn Martin.
Yeah, Chuck White Sox Johnson, famous for the first season of Pro Wrestling Ohio for strangling people with his white socks. That was his gimmick.
Yep. He contacted me. I haven't talked to Chuck White Sox Johnson in, I don't know, 10 years, 15 years.
Yeah.
I don't know that I ever spoke to him while we worked together in PWO.
Okay, fair enough.
But he made me an offer I can't refuse. Actually, he just asked to buy the rights, and I made him an offer he couldn't refuse.
Oh. Well, I mean, how much was this for? I mean, would you get a few $1,000 for it, or?
Oh, I got something for it.
Okay.
I got something all right. When Chuck had initially made the pitch to me to sell him the rights to the Burning River Wrestling name and brand, I was hesitant because it was my dream to own a promotion by myself.
Yeah, real company that you built for literally one show.
Yes.
Okay. Yep.
And a show that was.
Mm-hmm.
I told him, PayPal me $20 and we're good.
What?
$20.
$20.
Do you feel it was worth more?
I can't believe you got $20 for it, to be honest. You ran the show once as a joke.
So Chuck White Sox Johnson, his real name is Charles Jackson, correct?
Yes.
All right, and I told him he had to write up a legal binding contract that my attorney, the gavel David Lawless, would look over.
Okay. Do you have this contract?
Yes, I do.
Can I see it?
I will show it to you right here, right now, in front of all these people.
Okay. All right. What I'm holding is a picture of a piece of notebook paper that has scrawled onto it, I, Charles Jackson, and Alyssa Way have purchased the name Burning River Wrestling from Aaron Simmons for the amount of $20. And then he wrote he wrote $20 like he was putting it on a check. And then he put signed Charles Jackson and then wrote his name below it, and then had Alyssa Way also sign and write her name. That there's no date, nothing, just literally a piece of notebook paper.
Forwarded it to my attorney,
Yeah.
and Mr. Lawless said, sounds like a great deal, and it's official. So there it is.
This is absurd.
You're absurd.
No, I'm not. Just do you even? You don't even own the name. How do you legally? You don't own the name. So how could David even approve this?
When an attorney named Lawless signs off on it, well, here we go.
Jesus Christ. Okay. Well, congratulations to you, and I guess to Chuck White Sox Johnson. Good Lord. That's the end of this show. Hope you guys learned a thing or two about production,
Yeah.
pro wrestling,
Yeah.
Aaron being a con artist. Fun times.
Let's seal this with a kiss.
Well, first, if you aren't on Patreon, you should check out patreon.com/irononwrestling, starting at $3 for bonus content. I believe this weekend we're going to have a Zoom call happening, which only happens if you're the $5 and up level, which is pretty much the perfect tier on Patreon. And there's a bunch of other tiers that you could be a part of. It's a great community over on Patreon. That's what we're all about. Patreon.com/irononwrestling. You can also find us and follow us on social media at Iron on Wrestling. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel at Iron on Wrestling. And, of course, you can follow me on the internet at Gregory Iron on Twitter, at Gregory_Iron on Instagram. Find me on Facebook. DM me if you'd like to book me for speaking engagements, professional wrestling, seminars, any of those things. Send me a message or email me at Gregory_Iron@yahoo.com, and I'll get back to you immediately. And, of course, go to my Pro Wrestling Tee store, prowrestlingtees.com/Gregory Iron. My bad. And I'm also on Cameo. If you send me a cameo request, don't make it creepy like the one that I got yesterday, which was a 24-hour cameo request, which reads as follows. From a gentleman named Michael. Hello. I really like what you are doing. I would have a particular request to make. You will find it strange, but I have my reasons. Haha.
Oh, haha. That
I
means
would
it's a
like you
joke.
to scare me. When I say fear, I want you to give me the fear of my life. You have no limits, intimidation, threat, humiliation, whatever. Scare me very much. Thank you. This is from Michael Bergen Roy. So, of course, what I did was I read verbatim what he said, and then I walked out of frame, and then I popped back into frame, and I said, boo. Hopefully that wasn't too scary for you, because basically when you do a 24-hour cameo, I receive $22. And so I wanted to make the $22, but I did not humiliate him so that he can whack it. So just maybe try not to make your cameo request strange. Maybe just ask for a happy birthday or a congratulations. Yeah, well, I'm not. What do you want to plug?
Well, I guess follow my dog Lola at...
That's definitely happening in the background.
And then,
Oh, no, she's silent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, because the real money's right here. At Fair to Air, that's on Twitter. At Fair to Aaron, that's on the IG. And that's all I got right now.
Sounds good. Okay. Come back next week. We'll have a fun time. And until then, Aaron, kiss goodbye.
That's our tune.
Strange love, strange eyes and strange love, strange love. That's how my love goes. Strange love. Will you give it to me? Will you take the pain I'll give to you again and again? Will you return it? There'll be times when my crimes will seem almost unforgivable. I give in to sin because you have to make this life livable. When you think I had enough from your sea of love, take more than another river full, yes, and I'll make it all worthwhile. I'll make your heart smile. Strange love, strange eyes and strange love, strange love. That's how my love goes. Strange love. Will you give it to me? Will you take the pain I'll give to you again and